Hi folks, welcome to your latest mwis planning outlook in association with Ellis Brigham. We've got a rather unstable weather pattern across us at the moment. It's been responsible for the heavy downpours we've seen in recent days, and a few more of those to come in the days ahead as well. All getting quite messy as the pressure pattern across the British Isles gets rather slack, so things will move around slowly, not too much at this stage, moving things on from the Atlantic. Indications of higher pressure trying to get back in as we go into next week. How good that gets remains to be seen at this stage. In the meantime, we've got some further problems with low pressure on the scene, and this is Wednesday's chart. The low that's been responsible for rain and heavy downpours on Tuesday is still parked just to the northeast of Scotland, and a front wrapped around that will give some areas of rain toward the north and northeast, some heavy showers popping up for the eastern highlands through the afternoon, also around the borders, the Cheviots and Pennine areas, and some heavy thundery bursts too running from Wales towards the Peak District. Western Scotland doing pretty well for a brighter day with some sunshine coming through and cloud breaks to higher tops. A west or northwesterly breeze will be quite blustery in places and a little bit on the cool side on those higher summits. Now, pressure is attempting to build a little bit from the west into Thursday, but we're still stuck with some of the moisture and the humidity from previous days, and a slack pressure pattern has just still got a trough that's in play across Britain, and that will spark off a few areas of showers. Those could be very hit and miss where they form. Locally though, the odd thundery burst is possible. Greatest risk eastern Scotland, around the borders and Cheviots again, down the eastern side of the Pennines, and a few possible across more eastern hills of Wales as well. Many places though will avoid these right the way through the day, and you'll stay dry with a good amount of bright weather. Some sunshine, typically best around coastal fringes by the afternoon. Some banks of cloud may just linger in a few spots though. The wind though pretty light through the day on Thursday. Not a great deal going on into Friday in terms of the pressure pattern, a very slack situation across the British Isles. Again, there's the risk of a few localised showers popping up, again focused across more eastern regions from central Scotland, areas down the Pennines. Probably just to the eastern side of the Pennines is the greater risk, with a lower risk of showers for Wales and the Lake District. We're just then watching for a few dregs of fronts trying to make their way in from the Atlantic, which might just come in to southwestern parts of England and Wales later on for some lower cloud and some patchy rain just drifting in from the sea. Not much wind around then, so if you do catch a shower, they'll move around slowly. You could see some rain for an hour or so, whereas just down the road hasn't seen a drop. It doesn't get any easier in terms of detail into the weekend. It's a very similar story overall. It's a slack pressure pattern, there's not a great deal of wind around, and there's that risk of a few showers brewing up once again. May not be as extensive as this chart looks, but that risk is going to be there nevertheless, and some heavy and locally thundery bursts may pop up in places, typically again down the spine of the country from central Scotland southwards down the Pennines, but still very, very hit and miss. And some places getting away with a completely dry day. Around western coastal areas, more likely to be staying dry. We're watching them for some fronts pushing in from the Atlantic with a bit more strength as we head into the second half of the weekend. So by Sunday, lower pressure has just edged in a bit more from the Atlantic. It brings a risk of some generally lower cloud and some patchy rain, a bit more persistent in some places, more likely western regions, some uncertainty with the exact detail of that. A lower risk of heavy showers, the odd one may pop up locally, but it's maybe more likely to be a generally damp day for some western regions. We'll watch the detail, it's a few days away, there's uncertainty how soon this front and that low starts to edge in. Eastern regions perhaps a greater chance of staying drier, the wind just strengthening a touch compared to previous days as a west or southwesterly. So it's a fairly weak zone of low pressure which is near to us just to the west as we go through Sunday. High pressure is situated away towards the southwest just north of the Azores, and there's a further zone of low pressure somewhere between the east of Canada and the south of Greenland. That sets the scene for where we're going into next week. The difficulty then is how that all then unfolds further ahead. It's likely that that weak zone of low pressure and relatively cooler air in the atmosphere drifts across Britain as we go onwards into Monday, eventually passing southeastwards towards central parts of Europe, where thunderstorms will be expected during next week. Meanwhile, higher pressure is trying to build in from the west and joining forces with a zone of higher pressure away toward the Norwegian Sea as well, which could well give a good few days of decent weather next week, but there's uncertainty just how well that high gets in. There's the risk that a more stronger west or southwesterly flow across the Atlantic just stops that high from building fully across Britain and brings some nuisance weather still into western regions, more likely Scotland, where the wind flow comes in off the Atlantic. Some cloud and some patchy rain at times, whilst further south is nearer to high pressure and a greater chance of being drier with some sunshine. Some indications are pretty good for next week. Maybe it takes a bit of time to get going. Higher pressure trying to build in a bit further with time. I think at this stage we just need to be a bit cautious on how optimistic we are. We'll have your next long-range outlook then on Friday. That's been your planning outlook in association with Ellis Brigham. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.